I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're talking to Lynn Gentry, a trailblazing woman who defied societal gender expectations. She has penned a remarkable life story in her debut book, Episodes in a Cultural Revolution, growing up in the 1950s. Gentry challenged traditional values, navigating from nonconforming childhood to becoming Oakland Fire Department's first woman firefighter, creating an inspiring memoir that's a reflection on the societal transformation during the post-World War II era through the 1980s. We are delighted to have Lynn join us here today on Spotlight, and we ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel. Lynn, thanks so much for being our guest today on Spotlight.
I'm most grateful to be here.
This is quite a book. Episodes in a Cultural Revolution. This truly was a cultural revolution. Tell the folks at home a little bit about your life story.
Here's the beautiful cover.
Yep.
I love the cover. That picture is me. Kind of sums it up in a dress which my mother made me do, but with my 6 guns on and a Band-Aid on my knee. And it was a complete tableau. I grew up in the 50s in a suburban neighborhood. It was very, bucolic, and lots of vacant lots and trees and places to go get in trouble. And I was very much I'm the middle child in the classic sense of the word. I was virtually invisible. Nobody ever knew where I was or kept track of me, and so I wandered a lot. As a tiny person, maybe 5 years old, my mother thought to look for me at one point and found me about a quarter of a mile away in a pasture with a great big horse, reaching up, petting its nose, and someone next to her was wringing her hands and saying, "Oh my goodness, that's a dangerous horse." And again, kind of sums it up. I very much disliked being a girl. I was very attached to my dad, who was dynamic and an entrepreneur and pretty much the progenitor of cable TV. Mm-hmm. And he traveled a lot, was absent a lot, but I was his sidekick for a long time. And I could see very much the contrast in the 50s of the power and privilege and mobility he had, while my mother, who was probably chronically depressed if we examined it today, sat and read and smoked cigarettes and was extremely passive. And I looked at that and I went, if that's what being a modern housewife is, I don't want anything to do with it. I want to get on the plane and fly around and go up Spruce Mountain in Nevada on pack horses in the snow to fix his microwave installation. It was a much more romantic thing to hang out with Dad.
Yeah.
And in those days, the schools weren't so concerned about getting dollar per butt in the seat. And when I was absent a lot to travel with my dad, they said, well, we feel she's getting a better education doing that. So they should be more like that today, except.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that's what kids would be doing. If
I know, but I always felt all my life's been a learning experience, except those years I spent in school myself. So I totally relate. So you went around a lot with your dad on his job, and you started challenging traditional gender roles, correct?
I just never went into them. I didn't fit in them. They had to pry me into a dress to go to school because we couldn't wear pants in those days. When I would come home, it was like Superman in the phone booth. I couldn't wait to rip that thing off and get my jeans on and go play in what was an interstate freeway under construction, where there were trenches for new sewage lines and big banks of soft dirt to elevate the freeway that we would fly off of on our bikes. And my cohorts at home were boys, but at school, the boys didn't want to talk to the girls.
Right.
So at school, I was very isolated. Even in kindergarten, they would write home to my family about, she doesn't seem to be socializing well. She sort of sits in the corner of the schoolyard. And my not very concerned parents just sort of laughed and thought that was hysterical. Today, one would hope, or if it was my child, I would hope that somebody would give me some therapy. But also in the 50s, that was not a popular thing to do.
Right.
You went to a shrink if you were crazy. So
absolutely. Well, you went from wanting to hang out with the boys to feeling comfortable in jeans rather than a dress. And like we said, challenging gender roles, which was just second nature to you, really, or first nature to you. It didn't.
Yeah, I had no other path.
Yeah.
I was who I was, and
eventually that brought you to the Oakland Fire Department to be the first woman firefighter in 1980. I don't even know if they made special provisions for women back in 1980 to be a firefighter. You had to lift, what, a 180-pound man or something? Tell me what it was like for you.
Well, in the 70s, if departments, and it's a very expensive process, excuse me, to create and implement an entry-level test for firefighter. And most departments of a large city worked to get some federal fund assistance. And the way women were kept out of the fire department before that was what was eventually legally described as adverse impact. If you have a task on a physical agility test that an entire class of one sort of candidate can't pass, that's adverse impact. It's an invalid test. So in the late 70s, the Fed said, if you want our money, you have to change this. You have to make it, I don't know if it'd be constitutionally correct, but probably in violation of the 14th Amendment. But certain things, like at an entry-level test before my time, and I was the first person in this new regimen, the first group of people, but the test used to involve doing pull-ups and finding someone said in court, they don't go to a fire and do pull-ups. You must give them job-related tasks that involve the same strength and skills, like picking up this, you don't need to know these big heavy things and lifting them over your head.
Yeah.
So, but not doing pull-ups. The dummy wasn't 180 pounds, it was 165 pounds, but it was a bear.
Pretty close.
Yeah. And you had to do it on your haunches because you had to drag the dummy through a low plywood tunnel. And that was kind of brutal, but there were more things. It involved a lot of strength.
It's tough. Even wearing the gear of a firefighter is tough. I've had the helmet on my head, and after about 4 minutes, my neck is killing me. So I don't know how you did it, but you did it.
The gear that you wore, although the agility test was in street clothes, as I recall. I mean, we're talking 50 years ago.
Yeah,
almost. But I got sidetracked. Yeah, the gear is heavy. Some events were performed with what they call a charged hose line. That means it's already full of water from the hydrant.
Right.
And it's a 3-inch in diameter hose. That's quite a big hose. Most cities use 2.5. And you had to drag it out beyond an arc and not cross over the line. And all of it was very challenging, very challenging. The real difficult one for women was jumping over a 6-foot wall.
Right.
And, my belief is that women have a lower center of gravity, down in their below their belly button, whereas men's is more up in the solar plexus. And one candidate next to me said, it's easy, just do it like the man is after you. I said, another cultural disadvantage. But that was hard. It's harder today. It's not just that test, but there are personality assessments and chief's interviews and lie detector tests. It was just sort of a 3-part straightforward exam in 1970s.
Amazing.
Physical agility, a written exam, which 50% of the candidates didn't pass. Oakland's got its sorrows, and a lot of applicants for a job like that may have only gone through the 8th grade, whatever. But so a written, an agility, and then an oral, discussing with a panel questions that you didn't know upfront what they would be.
How long did you serve as a firefighter?
Well, on paper, 9 years. In the field, as they would say, 6 years. And it took another 3 years to fight my disability requirement application.
Right.
Because they don't want to pay people to stay home. I got a stress disability retirement, and they would say, oh, these stress retirements are going to drive cities bankrupt. And it's like, oh, maybe you could make the job less stressful.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
intercom 24 hours a day coming in to every room, even if it's a wrong number.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, Julia, no, but
Yeah.
the guys could sleep right through that. I couldn't.
Right.
You know, I developed
Right.
a pretty bad sleep disorder, which, you know.
Let me ask you this because we're short on time.
Yeah.
What would you like the readers and the viewers here to take away from your book?
Well, you know, there's a whole cohort of people that are similar to my age. I'm 76. I
don't believe that. It's hard to believe. You look much younger.
Yeah.
And lots of energy.
Who dealt with that constriction of the 50s and 60s. You know, there were very few jobs I could apply for because you had to wear a dress. You had to wear a dress to work in a bank. You had to wear a dress to work at the phone company. You know, so I went for all non-traditional jobs. I was a meter maid. I was a city gardener. And I went from a Friday afternoon in the Oakland Rose Garden to Monday morning at the fire department drill tower. But I think take away from is drive on. You know, I just refused to buckle. I couldn't do it, you know, in my soul. And I took quite a circuitous path. It took me 23 years to finish my bachelor's degree. I managed 2.5 years of law school before I even finished my bachelor's. And just that I'm so grateful that some of these societal things have evolved. But, you know, then again, there's the whole trans conversation. If that had been an option when I was a little kid, I would have made my parents crazy asking to be a boy.
Right.
Every birthday when I blew out my candles, right. I would wish that I would wake up in the morning and be a boy because they had it better. You know, I was not going to cook and sew. I still don't cook and sew.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. You are what they would call back in that era a tomboy, but you're not.
On steroids.
You're yourself, and you refuse to be anyone else. And that's
a little girl, you know, I just didn't work as a little girl.
Exactly. Exactly. And you've written a wonderful book about this. I think it's going to help a lot of people. Like you said, this debate is raging now more than ever. And the lengths to which people can make changes is greater than ever. There are more options. There's more volatility in the debate as well. So you are a pioneer in this cultural revolution. And the name of the book. The name of the book is Episodes in a Cultural Revolution. It is written by Lynn Gentry, and there she is dressed up as a little kid on the cover.
Hoppy Cassidy. Hoppy Cassidy all the way.
Hoppy Cassidy. Awesome.
The first line in the book is Hoppy was always my main man.
Wonderful, wonderful. Lynn, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Well, thank you, Logan. It's been a delight.
The delight's been all mine. I enjoyed it very much. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.